What is going on, everybody? My name is Nico and welcome back to another Pokemon BDSP competitive video. Today I'm going to be discussing what I believe to be one of the strongest but most slept on Pokemon in the competitive singles OU format in BDSP. This Pokemon I've worked in on a couple of teams and it just does wonders. Nobody is ready for it. So I want to talk about that here today. The Pokemon is GLACEON. GLACEON is just a threat and I want to cover all about it today. But if this is your first time here on the channel, make sure you are subscribed for more videos like this in the future. Let's get into it. So I've got us over here on Pikalytics, and just looking at the stats, it's only used 0.17% of the time in BDSP OU, which I think is crazy considering how good this Pokemon actually is. With such high special attack and such high base defensive stats, this Pokemon can really do a number on the opposing team, and I feel like people just aren't acknowledging it. And I threw it on a team just out of curiosity. And this Pokemon is just doing so much work, especially with the Pokemon that are so prevalent in the format right now. Like if you take a look here at what is most used, okay? The reason this Pokemon is so powerful in my opinion is because it gets freeze dry and nobody's thinking about freeze dry in this game. So if you look at the Pokemon that are at the top, the very tippy top of BDSP OU, we got Gliscor. Boom. That right there, covered by ice, 4 times weak to ice, perfect. Garchomp, 4 times weak to ice. Latios, weak to ice. Move down here, Breloom, weak to ice. Manaphy, weak to freeze dry. Gengar, Glaceon gets Shadow Ball. Gengar's weak to Shadow Ball. Starmie, we have another freeze dry weakness or Shadow Ball weakness. Dragonite, weak to ice. Moving on, we got Rotom Wash, weak to freeze dry. Azumarill, weak to freeze dry. You just keep going. Alakazam, weak to Shadow Ball. Tangrowth, weak to ice. You know, the list goes on and on and on and on of the Pokemon that this particular Pokemon just covers for. So many of these powerful Pokemon in the format, this Pokemon can just cover your ass for, and it's so good. So like I said, I have worked this into a couple teams. I've got a couple different teams here that just feature this Pokemon because, like I said, it just covers so much. It's so useful in that way. So I'll show you the one that I actually like to use, but I want to bring it up here. Because the move pool, I'll admit, is not super great. The move pool for this particular Pokemon is just not the best. You got 2 mediocre abilities here. But if you look at the stats overall, the stats are very good because you can just crank out your HP stat and then you can switch around what you want to use here if you want to use defensive stats or special attack. But the fact that this Pokemon has such a high base special attack, throw a modest nature on there, you have a 325 without putting any points there. That's huge. And then you could just focus on your defensive stuff because, you know, this Pokemon does have some weaknesses of Pokemon that are very prevalent in the format. If you look at things like Infernape, Breloom can Mach Punch this and do some work on it. Scizor is going to be a problem for this particular Pokemon. There are some Pokemon that are super good right now that are going to cause issues for this Pokemon, but with the defensive stats, you have the option to stay in, take the hit, and then knock out certain Pokemon. So it's just so good. So the one that I like to use, throw it in here, is this particular setup for Glaceon. This particular setup seems to do the best for me. I love this set because it just does so much damage. It does so much. So first off, Ice Beam, it's a staple on any special attacking ice Pokemon. It's just so powerful, so useful. But then Freeze Dry, and this is the big thing because nobody is thinking about Freeze Dry. No one thinks about that. So for example, in a lot of situations, you know, you're going to have Pokemon that are going to be very weak to ice types. So for example, Garchomp, things like Gliscor, you know, these Pokemon are going to take tons of damage from ice. They're going to want to rotate. What is one of the most common rotations into something like an ice type attack? It's water. Water is resistant to ice, so a lot of people are going to flip in something like, you know, an Empoleon, a Manaphy. A lot of different teams are running those Pokemon, so when they do a rotation for that, when they rotate that in, you just use Freeze Dry. Don't use Ice Beam. Use Freeze Dry, expect the rotation, and you just immediately blast whatever Pokemon rotates in, and they panic, and they fall apart. The team just falls apart. And that's what makes this so good, is you have that coverage option for a lot of different rotations, and even if they do switch to something else, Freeze Dry is still going to do a decent little chunk of damage. it's just super, super powerful. Now, I like the expert belt on it because it gives that little extra damage. You're not locked into any one attack, but it gives each of your attacks a little bit of extra damage, and I really, really like that. In terms of the other moves, like I mentioned earlier, Shadow Ball is super good on this Pokemon because this Pokemon's so bulky and you're able to take hits with it. Getting something like Shadow Ball off when people are using, Gengar and Alakazam are super prevalent. Azelf's very common right now. Cresselia is pretty big right now. Those Pokemon are going to take a big hit from this, especially with the Expert Belt in play. It's super, super useful for this Pokemon to have that kind of utility. Now, if you look at the rest of the move pool, it's not very deep. It's kind of a shallow move pool in general, but there are a couple other coverage options here. One being Water Pulse. This can be effective. Like I mentioned, Infernape is a big problem for this particular Pokemon. So having something like Water Pulse could prove to be useful if maybe they're rotating in, having that kind of thing. You could get some use out of Water Pulse here, but what I found to be the most useful is giving this Pokemon a little bit of priority. Now, obviously, if you look at the stats, the attack stat is not very good at all. The attack stat is pretty mediocre at best. However, throwing Ice Shard on it, if that Pokemon is like, just borderline, maybe they had Sash up or something, giving this Pokemon priority can win you battles. So Ice Shard for me has been the move that just fits the rest of the set the best. And I'm telling you, I think this Pokemon is incredibly slept on. It is so unbelievably powerful with a 130 base special attack. Obviously, the HP stat's a little low, but you make up for that in the defensive categories. You can really work this in, whether it be, in just a standard style team, with, water attacks or whatever you're rotating in on. There's a lot of prevalent ice Pokemon like Mamoswine, things like that. Rotating this in to take a hit's pretty nice, but you also could work this into like a Trick Room set because this Pokemon is pretty slow naturally. You could very easily move around the nature here and get a good slow Glaceon that could put in some very serious work for your team. And again, I think the big thing that makes it slept on is its shallow move pool, but when you take into account that it gets freeze dry, you have so much more coverage just from that alone. Just from that alone, this Pokemon handles a lot of other Pokemon that are just incredibly common, like Manaphy, Starmie, and Empoleon. Just a bunch of different Pokemon that are super, super used right now. So I think what this Pokemon is a sleeper pick that nobody is expecting, and I love it because of that. No one is ready for freeze dry. That alone has won me so many battles. Just having this Pokemon have freeze dry and just OHKOing certain Pokemon, beautiful. I love it. So that's really all I have. I just wanted to kind of hype this Pokemon up and give you guys some ideas for some extra ice rotations. The big ones right now are like Mamoswine, stuff like that. Even other Pokemon that just get Ice Beam, you got Starmie, you got Latios, those kind of Pokemon are your like big ice damagers right now. But Glaceon just kind of fits that role on certain teams. Obviously, it's very situational when you want to bring this. I haven't been able to work it on every team that I use, but there are some teams where Glaceon just fits perfect. It's a perfect little addition to a team, and I think it is just fantastic for that reason. So hopefully you guys found the video entertaining and helpful. If you did, leave a like and smash that subscribe button for more Pokemon content from me in the future. But like I said, that's it for this one, and I hope to see you all in the next video.